yeas are 51. The nays are 49. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, as amended, is passed.
This is a great day for the country.
A stench is rising in this chamber.
There was not a single Democrat who thought this was a good idea. And so we're going to take this message to the American people also a year from now.
The illegal immigrant acquitted of murder in the shooting death of a San Francisco woman is now the subject of a federal arrest warrant.
It's time for this country to get its head on straight. These cities should not be protecting criminal aliens.
Flynn pled guilty to making false statements to the FBI about his contacts with Russia.
There's nothing in this indictment that moves the ball significantly in terms of any crime associated with collusion and the Trump White House.
Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is laughing off reports that he's about to lose his job.
It's laughable.
It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, it feels like beautiful.
It's beautiful. Morning. Not day, morning. Let's start with the morning and then move to the day.
It's a beautiful day. It's a beautiful tax cut.
Rachel?
Yes, it's a big, beautiful tax cut. It's not just beautiful, it's a big, beautiful tax cut.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you for having me back.
Be back.
Love doing this show.
You know, I was landing in New York as I was getting an email last night because I was covering a tax cut debate. Fly here, past midnight, I'm reading my email as I arrive in New York City. Vice President Pence is arriving at the Capitol. So I felt like there was some symmetry to that. I was arriving for work, was getting ready to see you guys, and Vice President Pence was getting ready for a big
Why do
vote.
they do their work at 2 a.m.? Why can't they get it done at a normal time?
They can't get their act together during the week.
Big news at 2 a.m. You know about this,
Yes.
obviously.
Yes.
That's right. And so let's get straight to that Fox News alert because there is obviously a lot happening overnight while you were sleeping. And Ellison Barber's got all the details on the tax cut. Good morning, Ellison.
Good morning to you guys. Yeah, a big win that Republicans in the Senate got just by the skin of their teeth. They narrowly passed this bill with 51 votes after a number of last-minute changes and deals to convince some of those skeptical Republicans. Some of the changes were literally handwritten in the margins of the bill. That frustrated many Democrats who say this entire thing was rushed through. Some key changes to the Senate bill. Again, this was to convince holdouts like Maine's Susan Collins and Arizona's Jeff Flake, keeping the alternative minimum tax to provide more revenue, and now allowing property tax deductions up to $10,000, like the House bill, and keeping the medical expense deduction for the next 2 years. All Democrats voted against the bill. The only Republican no came from Tennessee Senator Bob Corker, who had concerns over the impact to the national debt.
I'm totally confident this is a revenue-neutral bill. I think it's going to be a revenue producer. As we've said over and over and over again, the $1.5 trillion deficit, only to be filled, only requires us to grow 0.4% over the next 10 years.
This bill is so slanted towards the wealthy and powerful and rains tax increases upon millions of middle-class citizens.
The House and Senate have now approved 2 different bills. Before this gets to the president, they need to come to an agreement and merge the 2 pieces of legislation. That starts when they go to conference. The House is expected to vote Monday night to go to conference, and then we'll see where this goes from there. The Senate bill is expected to hold more weight in conference than the House bill. 13 Republicans voted against the House bill. The Senate has less available votes to lose, so pleasing them and keeping them on board is, of course, very important. Pete, Rachel, Ed?
Ellison Barber, as if we thought the process was over. You're right. In some ways, it's just beginning because there's a conference committee. The House and Senate have to work out their differences. But this is a lot further than anyone believed. I mean, it was 24 hours ago. The mainstream media was cheering. There's chaos. The president may not get his tax cut. Getting it through the Senate, something they could not do on health care. This is a big deal.
One dissenting vote. Little Bob Corker did not vote
Bob
for the
Corker,
bill.
yes,
Senator Little Bob Corker. The president tweeted last night, 2 a.m. as the vote came out.
He was watching.
About this vote. He said, "We are one step closer to delivering massive tax cuts for working families across America." Special thanks to Mitch McConnell and Chairman Orrin Hatch for shepherding the bill through the Senate. Look forward to signing a final bill before Christmas.
Yeah, once they work out the
as you said, the devil's in the details. They got to get through a conference committee, but a big step.
Yeah. It is a big step. And by the way, a big moment for Mitch McConnell. I mean, I know there was a lot of haggling, and the bill is not, the House does not like the Senate bill quite yet. I was hoping that they'd be able to work it out and maybe skip that conference.
Sure.
That's not going to happen. But look, I mean, a few weeks ago, people were, really saying we need to change Mitch McConnell. I mean, this is the moment where you see where experience and understanding how to navigate the legislative process and making all these big ego senators happy to get this bill cobbled together. I think it's a big moment for Mitch McConnell. I think he's one of the few who could have done that.
Ego senators, very important. You're right. They
not the House
all
members,
want their own.
Right? The House members are great. You know those guys.
I know I'm a little biased, but I do think they're a lot more collegial and act more like a team. I think senators are their own thing, and I think that you'll see in this bill. I think the reason why this bill isn't as clean and as simple as we all wanted at this point is because of Senator.
So, break down the bill.
Yeah, let's dig deeper and look at it. So the corporate tax rate going down from 35% down to 20%, and we've got that graphic right there. But the individual tax cut part of this, though, I think is fascinating because the Joint Committee on Taxation took a look at this. 60% of households are going to get a tax cut. 8%, so less than 10% of U.S. households will pay more. 80% of families making $50,000 to $75,000 per year get a tax cut of at least $100. Why do I specify those numbers? You heard Chuck Schumer. We played it there. Ellison had it. He said this is all for the wealthy and the powerful. 80% of people making $50,000 to $75,000 getting a tax cut. How is that geared toward the wealthy and powerful? And I thought that Kimberly Strassel in the Wall Street Journal had this piece yesterday talking about how Democrats in the Bush administration reached across the aisle and actually voted for tax cuts. It wasn't that long ago. 2001, President Bush's tax cut had 12 Senate Democrats on board, 28 House Democrats. Right now, 0 in both chambers. Now, they'll have a chance.
You think maybe on the Senate vote, once it's obvious it'll pass?
Yeah.
Potentially a few Democrats?
Yes, I think you may see a Joe Manchin or someone else. You've got Claire McCaskill in Missouri. They're facing the voters in very red states next year. So the narrative from the media early in this debate was Republicans can't get anything done. They're going into 2018 empty-handed. The narrative could flip if they get this done. The Democrats are going into 2018 not voting for tax cuts.
Yeah. That's right. And listen, there's a lot of confusion. You hear on the left, they're saying, as you mentioned, Ed, that this is, for the corporations, this is for the rich. You're hearing the Republican messages showing how it helps working families. We know you guys out there have some questions. We've got an expert here to help explain some of the intricacies of this bill.
He's going to be answering questions every single hour.
That's right. So write in your questions. We will get to them here on the show.
Friends@foxnews.com. Are you going to pay more, pay less? I don't know. Will Ed Henry personally get the money that you think? I don't know.
I knew you would make it about me.
Of course. But no, it's amazing to watch the way in which Washington writes rules that apply to all of us, as if oftentimes they don't apply to them.
Yeah.
And in this case, it will apply to all of us. So we should pay attention. This all matters to us because
it does.
Absolutely.
Rates matter.
Meanwhile, President Trump's Justice Department just dropped the hammer on Kate Steinle's killer by issuing, an arrest warrant. This case, the verdict, the not guilty verdict, just an absurdity that is getting a lot of national attention. And Attorney General Jeff Sessions was on with Tucker last night. He's vowing to do everything possible to not just go after this criminal, but also crack down on sanctuary cities. Watch.
It's time for this country to get its head on straight. These cities should not be protecting criminal aliens, people who come into the country unlawfully, then they commit another crime, and then they hide that individual and don't let them, as they did with Zapata, be turned over to the ICE officers so they can be properly deported.
So the killer, and he is the killer, is now being deported?
That will be his ultimate fate. We are confident, and we are going to do everything possible to ensure that happens, although there are some potential other charges that could be brought against him. And before being deported and released, we think he should face every charge that is proper to be brought against him. And you can be sure our Department of Justice is working right now to bring any charges that are appropriate.
I'm fascinated by the fact that the Attorney General of the United States, when asked by Tucker, is he going to be deported, yes or no? And he said, well, we want to look at it. Now, in fairness to the Attorney General, he's saying, look, let's get him on other charges. Why? Okay, so that's great. Crack down. Because if we deport him, there's a good chance he's going to make it back.
Of course.
So we want to maybe throw him in prison for a while. Well, wait a second. What the Attorney General of the United States is saying, if we deport this illegal immigrant, there's a good chance he's coming back. That just shows you that even the Attorney General cannot guarantee that we're going to keep this illegal immigrant out of the country. It's remarkable.
But this case is really, I think, making the case for Trump about border security. I mean, the fact that the Attorney General is saying if we send him back, he's going to come back, it means we have not secured our border. And I think people are really outraged. I've talked to friends of mine across the country after this verdict. All of them are going, they can't understand it. They cannot understand how this happened and he is not thrown in jail.
No, it's true. Because laws should matter and borders should matter, but they don't. Speaking of something that Ed was very excited about.
I've been dying to see what Pete's going to say about this.
The liberal media is giddy about the fact that General Flynn has entered a guilty plea in the investigation with the special counsel.
Lying to the FBI.
Lying to the FBI. Let's listen to what the media has to say about this. Take a listen.
There aren't many more dots after Mike Flynn, right? Your dots go to Kushner and then the president. There really are no other dots here.
This is a case that reaches directly into the heart of the Trump administration, into the Oval Office.
People now who have believed that the president's sort of loose way with information and facts was his best defense now think that the president is in danger and exposed.
I do agree. This is a big moment where if you're on the fence, you start to think, geez, is this whole thing going down? Is it Watergate?
Oh.
Watergate, Ed? Watergate?
You knew Watergate was coming.
So you've got, lying to the FBI is no small deal. So I get that. But it doesn't connect the dots to the president colluding with Russia, which is what the media wants.
And he's also lying about something that is legal, which is in a transition, it's legal to talk to other countries, including Russia.
Thank you. But why did he mislead the vice president?
Because he was in a corner, didn't want to be talking about it, thought he could glaze it over.
So then the FBI sits down with you and you have a chance to clear the record. You lie about it.
That's right.
And it's a crime.
Bad idea.
Doesn't that suggest you're hiding something else?
No. It suggests you're just
Why lie to the FBI?
Because I don't want to be in this position. I'm here. The reality, he's not hiding some nefarious plot. He's hiding. It's like,
well,
I
we
don't
don't know
want to
what
be talking about
he's
this.
because he's now cooperating with the special counsel. So we have to see where it goes. Where I agree with you is that the media should not take this and run to Watergate immediately. Yeah. They did that with Manafort as well. That's what's fascinating. After the Manafort situation, right? He goes in, he gets indicted. It was Katie bar the door. I mean, Carl Bernstein, David Gergen were on CNN saying, this is it. This goes directly into the Oval Office. And then we got the details on Manafort. It goes directly to 2005.
Yes.
2006. This is more serious, though, because Michael Flynn was actually the national security advisor.
After he got elected.
For 20-some days. And by the way, he was national security for 20-some days. He was fired for lying by the president himself. I think really what the crime here, in my opinion, for Trump is that he made a bad choice. I mean, he had been warned that Flynn was not the best choice. A lot of politicians make that kind of decision early on as a new candidate, as a new president.
No one trusts the media. That's why. Anyway, all right, coming up, it happened again. An illegal immigrant accused of a vicious crime. And now we're learning he was deported 20 times. Yes, you heard it right, 20. How did that happen?
Wow. And Michelle Obama wanted to make school lunch healthier. Reasonable chance, right? But no one's eating it until now.
I don't want broccoli.
We'll tell you what's changed. Coming up.
Breaking news. ABC News' Brian Ross is reporting Michael Flynn promised full cooperation to the Mueller team and is prepared to testify that as a candidate, Donald Trump directed him to make contact with the Russians.
The celebration, although ABC News actually had to correct that specific story. We'll get to that. Mainstream media absolutely giddy with excitement over Michael Flynn's plea deal with the FBI.
But are they celebrating too soon? And what does this really mean for the Russia investigation?
Joining us with his reaction, Fox News contributor Charles Hurt. Hi, Charles.
Hey, guys. How are you all?
So what do you think? I mean, basically, you've got the mainstream media To me, it's the same thing they did with Paul Manafort a few weeks back. He's indicted, and you heard, I remember it broke on a Friday night, and then the following Monday he's indicted. He goes into court, Manafort, and on Friday night you had, on CNN, you had Carl Bernstein and David Gergen saying various ideas of, this is going to the Oval Office, Katie barred the door, the walls are coming in, and then Manafort, well, it goes back to 2005, actually, Charlie.
Yeah, it's like Lucy with the football. They did it with. They also did it with the Russian dossier, where they're like, "We finally got him," but they also did it like 20 times during the election. The problems here, though, are these. First of all, this is a crime that was created by the investigation itself. It has nothing to do with the Trump campaign or the Trump administration or the transition team. Nothing to do with any of that stuff. It all has to do with the investigation itself, which I would argue is a bogus investigation to begin with. The second thing is that Bob Mueller basically he put immense pressure on Mike Flynn to get him to this point. He threatened to put his son in jail. He threatened to bring financial ruin to his family, to his wife. You threatened to put my son in jail. You threatened my wife with financial ruin after I'm gone. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I'll tell you that the moon is made of meatloaf. Anything that you want.
You do that to me, I'll turn on Pete in a second if you do that to me.
Are you kidding me? I would turn on,
Charlie,
I would turn on anybody.
What is the avenue of approach to connect this to the president? Is there any?
This leads to a whole nother huge problem. What Mike Flynn is talking about are conversations he had with the president after the election. If you want to collude to rig the election, the collusion has to happen before the election, not after the election. It reminds me of that great scene in Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid where they finally go straight in Bolivia and they're going down the mountain and they're protecting the mine owner who's keeps getting held up with the payroll, and he looks around and they're trying to see where the plot is. He goes, morons. I got morons on my team. They don't rob me going down the mountain. I don't have the money. They rob me when I come back up the mountain from the bank. This is the same thing here. Bob Mueller's a moron.
All right. Well, listen, we're discussing this all morning. We really appreciate your insight there, Charles. And
my pleasure.
We'll be back.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
Appreciate it.
All right. Meanwhile, some breaking news. A device packed with nails found at a Christmas market days after ISIS called for the murder of innocent people. The chilling details that you can't miss coming up.
And it's happening again. Colin Kaepernick being called a hero for taking a knee.
Hero?
I don't know. Our next.
It's for you and a Fox News alert. A German Christmas market is evacuated after police find a device full of wires and nails nearby. Police safely destroying the package in a controlled explosion. Now, this comes just days after ISIS issued a threat against Christmas markets across Europe. The country has been on high alert since last year's deadly truck attack in Berlin. More breaking news, the FBI making an arrest in connection to the disappearance of toddler Mariah Woods. Authorities say Earl Kimry, the boyfriend of Mariah's mother, is in custody and facing several charges, including concealing of death, burglary, and obstruction of justice. Police say evidence gathered during the investigation has them believing Mariah is dead. They have yet to find her body. And a 70-year-old woman behind bars accused of making and exposing her neighbors at a senior community to ricin. The FBI says Betty Miller was planning to one day take the deadly poison herself, but wanted to test it out on her neighbors at her Vermont retirement community. Now, luckily, no one was seriously hurt.
Testing poison?
Yeah, good idea.
That's odd.
Thanks. All right, West Point graduate and Iraq War veteran John James knows a thing or two about leadership, flying Apache helicopters in dangerous situations, and leading 2 platoons, earning his own combat action badge.
Now James is hoping to win the Republican Senate nomination in Michigan, vying for the same seat that, yes, Kid Rock was rumored to be looking at. Army vet and Michigan Senate candidate John James joins us live now. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me.
We talked via remote a couple weeks back. Colin Kaepernick was in the news then. Here he is again. Sports Illustrated giving him the Muhammad Ali Award for courage, that he's a hero.
Well, I can say unequivocally, I believe that Sports Illustrated got it wrong on this one. I can think of a number of folks who have done great things. And it would have been nice for Sports Illustrated to use this platform to elevate someone who brings us all together. That's the reason why I got into the military to begin with. Pete, I'm sure you understand. There are some things out there bigger than us. And when I left home in 1999, enlisted for a year, I worked my way into West Point. I graduated from West Point in 2004. I became a Ranger qualified Apache pilot and flew 750 hours combat over Baghdad in Operation Iraqi Freedom, 07-09. And it's there when you're fighting for Iraqi freedom and you look to your left and to your right and you see something like our flag, which unites us. It's not about black, white, and yellow, red. It's about red, white, and blue. And those things that unite us, that's what makes us truly great as a country.
So, John, tell me this, though, because that's all true, and I agree with all of it. But tell me why, when you go to Washington, you'll be different than everyone else that's sung that tune and it's gone there. And you're going to say, OK, when I'm faced with a tough vote or a difficult decision, I'm going to make the tough call, even if it means some criticism from a lot of people.
Because I've been making tough calls my whole life. For half my life, from the time I left from West Point until the time I went to business, from the battlefield to the boardroom, it's not about what's convenient. I'm running because I truly believe it's not about our convenience. It's about being obedient. It's about putting one foot in front of the other and executing and getting the job done, accomplishing mission for our people all across the country. And if you can go to my website, johnjamesforsenate.com, you can learn a little bit more about my history. And I truly believe that past performance is the best judge. And we don't need more lawyers. We don't need more millionaires. We certainly don't need more career politicians. We need more leadership in Washington.
So I read your background, and there's something that very much interests me, because you have something in common with my husband, who's a member of Congress, which is that you have Democrat parents.
Yes.
So what are you doing to win?
How was Thanksgiving?
What are you doing to win them over? And by the way, my mother-in-law had, during the last election, she had a huge Bernie Sanders sign and this teeny tiny Duffy for Congress sign next to it. So what are you doing to win them over?
Well, I'm sticking to the values that they taught me. My father was born in 1941 in Starkville, Mississippi, lived directly across the street from Mississippi State University and couldn't go there because he's black, but because he refused to accept victimhood as his destiny, because he worked his way up with one truck, one partner, and himself. In this country, you can work your way into the legitimate economy if you refuse to make excuses. And I believe that from the toughest situations, he served in the military as well. He's a Vietnam veteran. He has served this country honorably. And I truly believe that in the state of Michigan and all around the country, we have the opportunity to broaden the GOP tent to not just include the old guard, but to broaden our tent to include millennials and minorities, folks who are actually conservative, who haven't had a Republican to vote for.
Let me get you to a couple of important issues, which is last night, overnight, we're talking about this tax cut that passed. If you win the GOP nomination, you'll take on Democrat Debbie Stabenow. Anytime she wants to come on the show and tell her side, we invite her on. But she voted against the tax cuts last night. And I haven't seen her pushing Kate's Law, which, so this illegal immigrant basically gets off killing Kate Steinle, talking about Kate's Law to crack down on these sanctuary cities. Why hasn't that gotten through the Senate yet? And would you support it?
I would absolutely support Kate's Law. I would absolutely support defunding sanctuary cities. Logic, it might be tough for some of our friends on the left to grasp, but if you receive federal funds, you must, at a minimum, abide by federal law. And those who are putting their lives on the line to protect us, to protect Americans from criminals, we're not talking about those who've immigrated here legally. We're talking about folks who have done the wrong thing and forcing them to pay the consequences.
John James, speaking out. We appreciate having you on the couch. Good luck to you on the road.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. All right, coming up, it happened again. An illegal immigrant accused of a vicious crime. And now we're learning he was deported, get this, 20 times? Yes, you heard it right, 20. How did that happen?
Wow. Plus, Michelle Obama wanted to make school lunch healthier. Sounded good, right?
More broccoli.
No one's eating it. Until now, actually.
What?
We'll tell you what just changed.
And your questions about the tax plan filling up our inbox, like this one from Terry. How will it benefit someone who works full-time but makes less than $50,000? The answer to that and more coming up next.
Well, a Fox News alert, the Senate passing the GOP tax bill last night, 51-49, clearing the way for the first major tax reform in more than 30 years.
Wow. Early this morning, the final vote coming just before 2 o'clock this morning. Bob Corker, the only Republican opposing the bill, not a single Democrat supporting it. The Senate, though, will now have to reconcile this bill with the House version before sending it to the president. So the bottom line is there's still a lot of confusion about what's in, what's out. And that's why we're so happy to bring in Daniel Geltrude. He's a CPA based in nearby New Jersey here. Good morning. Welcome. Good morning. We appreciate it. Good morning. What do you think, first of all? We have a lot of questions out there, but just big picture real quick. What do you think is the most important thing that's in there for our viewers?
Well, I think the big thing right now is the corporate tax went through 35% down to 20. That's big. That's going to be a big stimulus for the economy. And I think that was the primary focus of this tax bill because things got a little muddy on the individual side. But corporate, they really stayed the course.
And when you get those corporate rates down, when the economy grows, it's good for everybody. But I want to quick go to our first question, the one we teased earlier. How will this benefit someone like myself? This is one of our viewers that works full-time but makes less than $50,000.
I don't think that for a person like that, there's going to be very much change. When you're talking about making $50,000, he's probably not paying in that much in tax to start with. So if I had a guess on that one, that's probably a break even under this plan.
But doubling the standard deduction helps, right?
Yes, but you can only get back what you pay in. I mean, that's the point. Unless there's some tax credits
Something lost in this debate, you're right, is that a lot of people making less than $50,000 a year are not paying any taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. Almost half the people are not paying any federal income tax to start with.
So we got an email from Paul. He said, will the AMT, the alternative minimum tax, be repealed under this plan?
It was supposed to be, but it's back. And the reason it came back is during the horse trading, they needed to pick up more revenue. Now,
this is all about the rules, right?
It's all about the rules, but let me say this.
And the Senate.
And the Senate, yeah.
This is really a big hit for high tax states. Why? The whole game that was being played here is we're getting rid of the state and local income tax deduction. But don't worry, because we're going to take away the alternative minimum tax. Now they put it back in. So now you're going to get hit twice if you're at that level.
But that could
forget simplification, by the way.
States like New York, Connecticut, New Jersey, California, that could be a big hit.
Absolutely.
All right, Deirdre has a question. The stock market has been raging lately. Are there changes for capital gains taxes?
There are no changes for capital gains. Now, that's one of the things you talk about when you really want to stimulate the economy. You bring down those capital gains rates. They did not do that, so everything is going to stay the same.
Okay.
So let's get another email in from one of our viewers. I run my own business as a sole proprietor. I make about $150,000 a year doing it. As an LLC, will my taxes go down to 20%?
It's not going to be a mirror image of what's going on with the large corporations. What they're going to do with those pass-through entities is if $150,000 is what his pass-through is going to be, they're going to allow a deduction for 23%. So he will pay tax on the balance of that number based upon the new individual rates, whatever comes out after reconciliation.
Right. So if your individual rate comes down, you may have a little cut, but you're not going down to 20%. Okay.
Correct.
All right, Daniel, one more question from Philip. He says, what will be the effect on retired folks' income taxes from saving IRAs, investment type incomes? What do you think?
Retirement income tax is not going to change. So this is really just a function of where they fall in terms of their taxable income.
Sure.
So it's just going to be subject to the new rates. Has nothing to do with what the source of that retirement income is going to be.
Daniel, do you like this bill?
I like it on the corporate side. I think they made it really complicated on the individual side. We're not going to be filing on postcards.
Right. That's what the president promised.
I don't see it, especially with the alternative minimum tax back.
Good news for a CPA, though, because a lot of people are going to be figuring it out. They're going to hire you.
I hope so.
He's coming back throughout the show. Daniel Geltrude, we appreciate it. We'll come back to you next hour.
Thank you,
Keep your questions coming. friends@foxnews.com.
Turning now to your headlines, a chilling blast from the past across Hawaii. That siren blaring for the first time since the Cold War, an effort to prepare people for a possible North Korea nuclear attack. Earlier this week, the rogue regime tested a missile it says can hit anywhere in the U.S. Officials believe people in Hawaii would have less than 20 minutes to find cover if a missile were launched at them. A Mexican illegal immigrant who was deported 20 times gets 35 years in prison for sexually assaulting 2 women. Sergio Jose Martinez was freed from a Portland jail weeks before the separate attacks, despite ICE's request to hold him. Martinez told his victim's family in court he'd, quote, see them in hell. ICE says once his 35 years are up, he will be deported again. NBC won't be giving Matt Lauer a $30 million payout. The New York Post reports his lawyers wanted the network to pay the remainder of his contract after firing him over sexual misconduct allegations. But NBC executives say Lauer violated his contract, therefore he won't be paid beyond his last day of work. This, as the Post also reveals, Lauer's wife has taken their 2 younger kids to the Netherlands, her native country. Michelle Obama wanted to make school lunch healthier, but no one's eating it until now. And that's because regular chocolate milk is back on the menu. My kids are so happy. The U.S. Department of Agriculture publishing a new set of guidelines, eating Obama-era lunch rules for all public schools. Starting July 1st, it will allow flavored milk with 1% and relax sodium limits and whole grain requirements on school lunches.
Milk?
I know.
Kids are celebrating everywhere.
That's all I want.
They don't get it at home. The only place they get it is at school. So.
Chocolate milk. Come on.
My house.
All right. Well done. A Fox News alert. The DOJ issuing a arrest warrant for Kate Stanley's killer. Our next guest says there's one thing we need to do to make sure he gets deported. And doesn't come back. Steve Cortez is on deck for that next.
Plus, it could be a revolutionary treatment for cancer. You can't miss this. It's next.